Margaret Mitchell was also a hostess for a buffet. She was in the food industry business too, before she started writing the greatest novel of all time, Gone with the Wind. Margaret Mitchell also used the name Peg or Peggy. While at Washington Seminary, she became obsessed with the Pegasus, which is a mythical character. 1920, she wore one of those flapper dresses and became like one of those dancers, the 1920 flappers. At a ball one time, she performed in public an Apache dance. True story. So while Margaret Mitchell was dancing the Apache dance, she kissed a man in public and she was banned from the junior league. True story. Margaret Mitchell did that. The writer of Gone with the Wind. It inspired the 1921 film, The Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Margaret Mitchell danced the Apache dance and kissed a man in public and was banned from the junior league. She was a rebel, Margaret Mitchell was. 1921 film I'm talking about, the silent Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse is the correct pronunciation, or the correct title. Margaret Mitchell made Rudolph Valentino a sex symbol for the silent film industry. Margaret Mitchell did that. She was a writer. She wrote Gone with the Wind. At one time in her life, Margaret Mitchell was engaged to 5 different men and didn't marry any of them. She did marry later on though. Margaret Mitchell, the writer of Gone with the Wind. Margaret Mitchell, the writer of Gone with the Wind, would later fall in love with Kennard Upshaw in the late 20s. And she'd end up hooking up with him finally. Well, he was connected to the Associate Press of Kentucky. So she got into the writing business very easily. Later, with her fling with Upshaw, she would divorce the Catholic Church and join the Episcopalian. So she became Episcopalian. So she left the Catholic Church. Episcopalian. Why does that sound funny? Episcopalian. That's how it sounds. Episcopalian, I think. I'll look it up. Yeah, Margaret Mitchell would leave the Catholic Church and become Episcopalian. That's how you say it, Episcopalian. Towards the end of her life, she would marry a man and call him Red. One day she was leaving a ball with her lesbian lover, and a car struck her and killed her. She died the next day at a hospital, supposedly. I think it was a lesbian lover that they buried instead. They just told the hospital that was Margaret Mitchell. Then Margaret Mitchell would move all the way to Haltom, Texas, and start her life over and become a lady named Nanny Wawa, my great-grandmother. Later in life, Margaret Mitchell would move to northeast Texas, a place not too far from Greenville. She lived in a wide-load house right on the property of my Granny Ann's, as in Ann Mitchell. She would continue smoking, and she would watch Pat Sajak, or was it Pat Sajak? Pat Sajak in Wheel of Fortune every day, and she would chain smoke until the moment of her death, where she would smoke a cigarette, get off the oxygen, go into the bathroom, smoke another cigarette, get back on the oxygen, take the oxygen off again, go back to the bathroom and smoke another cigarette, get back on the oxygen again, take the oxygen off, and go back to the bathroom and smoke a cigarette till the day she'd stop breathing. And we'd visit her, and she'd give us a hug. Usually a little bit of money sometimes too. Maybe one of those chocolate bonbons. And she'd talk like this, and she'd look at me, and she'd go, "We heard about you in that play, Cole. You're my little Pat Sajak." That's what she'd call me, Pat Sajak. She'd call me that. I think it's the real Margaret Mitchell. Do the research. Why am I writing so much? I'm this big actor on the stage because Margaret Mitchell wanted me to be. Of course, you're going to say, no, Margaret Mitchell died and she was buried somewhere else. Well, why was my great-grandmother's name Margaret Mitchell? Why was that her name? And she kept her same name because she was arrogant. She wanted to keep her same name the entire time, start her life over, married some chump, got in the soil conservation business, became a secretary in Haltom, Texas. Now, prove me wrong, because I don't think you can. I think it was really Margaret Mitchell. Strange about that stop sign at the bottom, it says, whoa. I thought that was kind of cool. Right there before Waterside, Bryant Irving. And they also say that Margaret Mitchell was an unscrupulous flirt. She was unscrupulous when it came to flirting. 1821 or so, she would marry Red. There was a guy at the wedding named John Marsh. John Marsh would become her second husband up to the day that she died. John Marsh was the one that she left after she faked her death and moved to Haltom, Texas, and became my great-grandmother, Margaret Mitchell. She was so arrogant that she didn't bother to change her name. She kept it the same. She just didn't want to be around them anymore. So and where do people always go? They go to Texas. At the age of 29 years old, Margaret Mitchell then married John Marsh at the Unitarian Church. I think it was called the Unitarian Universal Church. True story, very strange. Okay, so after the marriage to John Marsh at the Unitarian Universalist Church, it was known as the Unitarian Universalist Church, she would move to Atlanta, out of all places, with John Marsh, her second husband. After Margaret Mitchell was married, she would make her home at the Crescent Apartments in Atlanta. After marrying, she married at the Unitarian, it's like Unitarian Universalist Church. I've never even heard of it. It's a Unitarian church. Unitarian basically believes that the Father and the Son is one. A Trinitarian believes that the Father and the Son and the Holy Ghost are all kind of like a separate thing working together. Unitarian, and this was Unitarian Universalist, they believe that the Father and the Son is one thing. Because there's a scripture in the New Testament where Jesus says, where I am, he is. He's talking about his Father. And where my Father is, I am. As if he was the same. So they're known as the Unitarian Universalist Church. That's where she married, believe it or not. She left Red and she found John Marsh. That was her second husband. They'd moved into the Crescent Apartments in Atlanta. After Margaret Mitchell married John Marsh, her second husband, and she married at the Universal Unitarian, or it's actually Unitarian Universalist Church. So it's Unitarian Universalist Church. Then she would move into the Crescent Apartments in Atlanta, which she named The Dump. Check this out. Margaret Mitchell married John Marsh at the Unitarian Universalist Church. Then John Marsh and she, I'm gonna take a gander on that, moved to the Crescent Apartments in Atlanta, and she named it The Dump, while she was legally married to Red. She was still married to Kennard Upshaw while she married John Marsh. So she had two husbands, and one was illegal. I don't know which one, whichever one you decide. They'd probably say, well, we'd go to the first one. The first one was legal. Yeah, she was married 2 times. She was married 2 times, but stayed married to the other one. She was scandalous. I mean, scandalous. So she marries John Marsh, and still she's married to Upshaw. So Kennard Upshaw is married legally to her, and then she marries John Marsh, and then she gets a job for the Atlanta Journal in Atlanta. She becomes a journalist. True story. Works for the Sunday magazine. This is Margaret Mitchell. She's married to John Marsh, her second husband, and then legally married to Kennard Upshaw. At the same time, I don't know if she sees Upshaw, but she's still legally married. She doesn't even bother to divorce him. And they were married, and John Marsh and Margaret Mitchell were married at the Unitarian. It's basically called the Unitarian Universalist Church. And then she gets the job for Atlanta Journal, the Sunday magazine, and begins to become a journalist. This is a great woman. I mean, all over the place. She just starts, I'm going to become a journalist. And she becomes a journalist. Just like that. So Margaret Mitchell received almost no encouragement from her family and friends and society and her social partners or whatever while she became a journalist. They did not encourage her to be a journalist at all, but she continued on and continued journalism, and then later would write the one and only book, the masterpiece, Gone with the Wind, which is featured in the Francis Ford Coppola film, known as The Outsiders. They actually read that book, parts of the book in the movie. It's a great book. So Margaret Mitchell goes off to the Atlanta Journal, and she's working for the Atlanta Journal. She's married to John Marsh, and she's also married to another guy named Kennard Upshaw. And which is, you know, I guess you can't have two legal marriages, but she somehow did it. She starts writing about Confederate generals, you know, in the Civil War, and King Tut. It's like, where's the combination between the Confederate generals and King Tut? But that's what she was writing about when she was doing the Atlanta Journal, when she was writing for the Atlanta Journal. She worked for the Atlanta Journal. Last surviving bridesmaid. Margaret Mitchell was writing about the last surviving bridesmaid at Theodore Roosevelt's mansion in these long white columns. The stories were beyond genius. And she just started typing away, and these stories came out of nowhere, and people were just flabbergasted by her creativity. They came out of midair. Just like Nanny Wawa would tell all these stories and sit there and smoke her cigarettes, chain smoke her cigarettes and watch soap operas all day long. You know who else would watch soap operas? Guess this right. You know who else would watch soap operas? Stephen King. Stephen King would watch soap operas when he went to a poetry workshop in Bangor while attending the University of Maine. True story. When you're picking up for roses, get it right. Because they get it wrong. And if they do, it slows you down up to an hour to get it right. Last time he rang up refried beans. 2 extra refried beans. I was here for an hour working the receipts out with the chat line, but I didn't get on the chat line till way later. I found out the runner chat line, the live chat line, actually helps you, and you just send them the receipts and say, look, this guy messed up, blah, blah, blah. This is Rosa Cafe. It's a tortilla factory. We're gonna go in there and get your food and drop it off at your doorstep. And there's no copyright music in it. It's all Spanish. Wonderful Spanish, non-copyright at all. This is what they're advertising. You got the beef burrito plate, number 1, taco plate, Mexican dinner, cheese enchilada plate, number 4, deluxe Mexican dinner, 6, beef fajitas, 9. You got the fajita carbon plate, 8. That's good. It's got like pork smothered burrito. Then you got your tamale dinner, and what the wait on this one. They advertise Dr. Pepper, which was established back in 1885. Kind of like a tonic drink. This is a chicken enchilada plate right here, number 55. It goes all the way through here. You can even get honey here. And you could do like extra chips and things like that. Pretty good. All right, let me see. So we got a dozen flour tortillas, a half pint of pico de gallo chips. We've got number 32 half pint beans, and then we've got 3 large queso chips. And what's your total? Right here, it's gonna be $36.85 with tax, $281. So $36.85, got it. These are the honey packets right here. And they got a pico bar over there. So they do all the tortillas here. Okay, I'm going back. They do all the tortillas here. They do the tortillas here fresh. They put them in this thing right here. It spins around in this heated device. I guess it's an oven. You can see the flames right here. It'll actually cook them right there in front of you. They'll fall onto this little conveyor, this metal conveyor right here. You'll see it right there. And then they go up the conveyor, cooling them to a tortilla. You can see it right there, and it'll plop down right there. Yes, it's a tortilla Factory. And that's the actual oven right there at work all day long. It's a pretty good place. I'm going to show you this right over here. All right, then you just walk over here and load up. You get yourself hot and mild. Pico's right here. So this is what they used to have at Taco Cabana, but now they only have it, that I know of, immediately at Rosa's. Rosa's had it, I think maybe, they may not have had it during COVID, but Cabana they no longer have their bar, as in their Pico bar, but Rosa's, they kept theirs. So I don't know if Cabana's gonna get them back. You get these little things and fill them up, and you can put them on your burritos or tacos or whatever. But Rosa's still has theirs going on, so it's a very cool thing. That's their Coca-Cola. It's kind of a Latino style, the Vela Coca-Cola mural. Well, it's not really a mural. It's kind of like a cardboard. That's not even cardboard. That's like wood cutout, and they just kind of nail it there. Yeah, that must be wood. I don't know if it's metal or wood. One of the two. Probably metal. Maybe wood. I think it's wood. And they have these paintings right here. These cool little paintings. It's kind of got like a theme park kind of feel to it a little bit. We get these things right here. There's someone finished up their meal. Right, so this is one of their prints for Taco Tuesdays. It's every Tuesday. I hope today's not Tuesday. I'm gonna double check on that. So they will put a number on the receipt. This one's 26, and you can just carry it out right here. Yes. Oh, I did not know that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for telling me. Yeah, the chips. We don't really rummage through the bags too much. They usually will tell you if they're there, so. That one, I think these should have been stapled together or maybe tied together or something like that so we would know. Or they could have used a bigger bag. Or I don't know what they could have done. Palm tree. Palm tree alert. Palm tree alert. Dumpster squirrel right there. You can kind of see it. He's probably looking for maybe something in the dumpster, I don't know. But he's right there between the two dumpsters. I did write a children's story called Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels, and the lead character in it, well, the main character is Timmy, called Timmy the Squirrel. And Timmy kind of takes care of his family. He's got Johnny and Lucy, who Lucy's pregnant, and it starts off, the first story is called Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels, and it starts off with Nutty being peeled off the road. They have to go, Nutty gets run over. He's one of the squirrels in the gang. He gets run over, and they had to peel him off the road and give him a burial by an oak tree, right by a barbed wire fence. You gotta read it. It's on my fan fiction and fiction press. It's called Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels, and there is a sequel. The sequel is called East Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels. Then there's gonna be a West Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels, and probably a North Mid Cities Blvd Squirrel. They travel around a lot. You got to read it, fan fiction, fiction press, under Ash Cole, Mid Cities Blvd Squirrels. All right, so 1.5 miles to the drop-off point from Rosa Cafe. That's about a mile off, so it's really about 2.5 miles. It's kind of windy out today. All right, so we'll be going to Spice, which is a restaurant, from this location of the drop-off. It's exactly 8.8 miles until we pick up your food at Spice. Roll away from Florida. All right, this restaurant is known as Spice. We'll be picking it up and dropping it off at your doorstep. At Trinity Metro, you just download and ride right there. Trinity Metro. There it is, Spice Thai. It's a select. Next stop, 5.8 miles to drop off the Spice food. Yeah, I actually am. Thank you. Looks like no pets are allowed, but they do have copyright. I just thought it was cool that they had this playing right there. All right, we'll be going 6.6 miles to the drop-off, and we're passing under a train bridge. There's the art object that looks kind of like a claymore. A little bit like that. Kind of get stuck in these roundabouts. Looks very similar to a claymore. The structure of it. I don't know where it came from. I don't know much about it. It's off of White Settlement Road. Oh, the gates were open this time. This area is known as Summersby. I like this rock wall right here. It's right next to this golf course. Kind of reminds me of like the UK, United Kingdom, or Ireland, where they have these kind of these I guess you call them rock walls. I guess you'd call it that, a rock wall. That sounds weird to say, a rock wall. But that's, I guess you could say it. I mean, it's got to be something like that, rock wall.